I'd like to call the Saline City Council meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Members present this evening are myself, Mayor Morrow, Council members Gearboss, Seo, McClellan, Dillon, and Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. From city staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, Police Chief Hart, DPW Director Fordyce, our Parks and Rec Director, as well as our Wastewater Treatment Superintendent. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, we encourage you to sign in the back to my left, and we welcome you here tonight. At this time, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
So moved?
As submitted, Ms. Dillon?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McClellan. All those in favor of approving the agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. At this time, I would entertain a motion to excuse the absence of our colleague, Krista Mitchell, who indicated earlier today that she would not be present.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gearboss, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. All those in favor of excusing the absence signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We have two presentations this evening. The first is we are going to recognize the Saline Twirlettes, and I believe we have quite a few young ladies. We have many young ladies with us, as well as some parents and some of the group's leadership. Do you want to come forward at this time? I thought I saw Susan somewhere. Oh, in the back, okay.
Yes, he is.
Chris, can I have yeah, okay, perfect. You want to start? Okay. We're welcome you here this evening.
Thank you. So we're proud to be here. This is the Saline Twirlettes, part of our national team, and this past summer they won the 2018 Grand National Show Corps with Props division, so that is like a grand world title at nationals. So we're very proud. This was a big win for our team. We only entered this division for the second time. It's kind of something new for us. It was a new division. It carries a lot of prestige in the twirling world. Our nationals is at Notre Dame, and for the past 30 years, there has been one team that has won this award, and so now we are the first in the new era to win the award. So we always compete under the name Saline Twirlettes. We're very proud of our background and that we've been around actually in this community for 50 years. So this year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Twirlettes. I just recently met the woman that started the Twirlettes. So I think it shows a lot of years of dedication by parents, twirlers, coaches, everyone involved. We're very proud that we still compete under that name 50 years later. And I believe we are the longest standing organization in Saline. So I think that says something. And I believe we're the only team that's brought a national championship to the community. So we're very proud of these young ladies. Actually, we had 25, although some of them are off to college, back to college now, and some of them live far away. Although the group is based in Saline, we have kids from all over, like Grass Lake, Jackson, Ann Arbor, Belleville, Birmingham. So we have kids coming from all over to be a part of this great tradition. So we're very proud. And obviously, we have this traveling trophy for 1 year. So we're going to leave it here with you to display so the community can share it. And then we'll have to take it back and pass it along.
Well, thank you. Let's give these young ladies a round of applause. Susan, you touched upon a number of milestones and important recognitions that the group has received. And it's true, the city has displayed a number of trophies and awards in the past. I don't recall one this large before. Can I pick it up? How heavy is this bugger? Oh, that's pretty substantial. Yeah, very nice. Well, ladies, we're delighted to have you with us this evening, and as Susan said, you have received a lot of recognition and support and accolades over the years, and it's well-deserved. And I must say that you do a tremendous job representing the community and being good ambassadors for our area, and we appreciate that very much. So we're honored to have you with us this evening, and we're equally honored to be able to display this magnificent and very impressive trophy in our lobby. How long are we going to have it for, Susan? Oh, boy. Okay. It's a difficult one to display. Well, we'll have it here for some extended period of time, and like I said, we're honored to do that. We're impressed by your achievements, and you're all winners, and I know you'll continue to be successful in the ensuing year. Let's give these young ladies another round of applause. Thanks, ladies. Appreciate it. Oh, very good. Yeah, it gives it a little bit of context. Excellent. Okay. Very good. Thanks so much. Wanna shake my hand? Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Nice job. Congratulations. Congratulations. Nice job. Congratulations. 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 Nice job. Thanks for being here. Congratulations. 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 Thanks so much. Yeah, my pleasure. Okay. Probably 30 pounds right there. Okay, Holly Andrews, our Main Street Director, I believe you're up next with a quarterly report. And you do have a PowerPoint, is that correct? Okay. Well, as soon as you're up and running, the floor is yours. Thanks for being with us.
Hello. Should it just go up by itself, or do I have to do something?
Yeah, I think it'll come up on its own. There you go.
Yay! Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. My name is Holly Andrews, and I am the director for Saline Main Street. And I am here tonight to present our quarterly report for September 2018 to you guys, the City Council. So just a quick backdrop. Our Main Street district outlined in yellow there, from Harris to Lewis to McKay to Henry. Who we are, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our coordinating state organization is Michigan Main Street, and we are accredited by the National Main Street Center out of from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Our mission, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're dedicated to guiding our downtown toward its most vibrant future. Our mission is to promote, drive, and implement economic development by collaborating with residents, public officials, private stakeholders, supporting a shared vision. We are committed to making downtown Saline a great place to live, work, and visit. We follow the Main Street 4-point approach. It's registered from the National Main Street Center, and we have a team designated to each one of these points: a design team, organization, promotion, and business development team. Main Street Board of Directors are at the helm, a great group of people, and I am the executive director. Promotions team throughout summer 2018, planning and events. We really had a blast hosting the summer music series. We hosted 11 concerts on South and North Ann Arbor Street. We have also been planning for the Oktoberfest and Trunk or Treat that are just coming up straight away. What I did was I took the notes from all of the different team meetings, and these are the notes from the team meeting for promotions all summer. They're planning, and every time a word is repeated, it gets bigger. So you can see what their focus was and the things that they were talking about the most. The music, summer music series, obviously, but events, kids, ideas. They talked a little bit about parking, but it was mostly around kids and the event and putting on a great music show. And it was an incredible summer. I got some photos of the concerts this summer. We had a good time. A lot of people came out, and we had some really unique bands, a little bit of something for everyone. And the kids and the people really came out for these shows. We had beautiful weather, and we got to team up with the Celtic Festival organizers and be on the north side. That was a beautiful day with Crossbow. But I love seeing the kids using the street for other things than driving. They really had fun playing on the yellow lines, which was kind of cool. And it was great for me to see the Saline Fiddlers for my first time. But it really did highlight what a beautiful setting we have downtown, and everybody came out and had a good time and opened their pockets. 2018 work plans are wrapping up their community events. Winterfest for 2018 was traditional in its makeup, but this year for 2019 we are going to focus more on the broomball tournament, so more on that later. But we will return with Ladies Night Out Summer Music Series. We are looking forward to Oktoberfest on the 28th and 29th of this month. Trunk or Treat on October 24th, which is a Wednesday. And of course, the Chamber of Commerce's Great Parade, putting together a float for that. And then marketing downtown, Facebook, Twitter, and more. So design team this summer working on Be Bloomin', the banner program supporting art around Saline, and coming up, the holiday decorations and Merchant Park planning. And that is with the mayor's Merchant Park vision and project. This was the word cloud I got from the design team's team minutes. So as you can see, more focused around design, flowers, art, artists, the Be Bloomin' project, stars for the holiday decorations. So it's kind of neat to see how different they are. Some pictures around the downtown this summer and just showing those beautiful flowers. Thank you so much to the DPW for helping us and keeping after the watering. It was a brutal summer. And of course, thank you so much to Tim Austin and Brandon Hertel of A&H Lawn Management and Landscaping and their whole talented crew. We loved and enjoyed the medians all summer long. Saline's Young Artists Show, Civic Pride, the student art banners, that was really like an amazing project, and it was not easy to pull off, but when it came together, it was wonderful. And there's John Olson from the Chamber. He helped us do a ribbon cutting for the kids, and we just had a really, really great time featuring their art all over downtown this summer. And then working with the Arts and Culture Commission to support their project Art Around Saline. We are partners and sponsor. We also acted as property owner liaison and jury participants as well. And the new prints are up. This is the one on Pineapple House, so make sure you get around. There are maps around to see where they are at the different businesses downtown. Design team, they're wrapping up their work plans from 2018. Those projects that we just looked at, and planning for the holiday decorations. That's in full swing right now, and some really cool stuff coming up. Organization team, they were, of course, working on sponsorships, volunteer recruitment, marketing the district, and leadership development. And their story is even different again. You'll see, it's probably curious that businesses are so up in front and upscale, but really their job is to attract sponsors, sponsorships, and volunteers. And they really have to tell the story about our businesses and our quality events and the reason why it's such a wonderful, fun thing to volunteer or to give to our nonprofit organization. Our incredible volunteers, there's Veronica, her Hutfliz, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, and her dad, but she came all the time. But we are really rich with volunteers, and these guys, Jeff and John and Richard, every concert, we're putting out all those chairs and picking them up. Eats and Beats, and of course Gigi and Sue, we love them. Their work plans are wrapping up. They've been working really hard on a communication strategy that I'm really excited about. They're right now planning the rollout for that. So We'll keep you posted on that, but you're going to be really excited, I think. Policies and procedures, volunteer recruitment and retention. Fundraising, the corporate sponsorship, the goal was 56,000. Currently committed, 54.9. Karen has been, really working it. We just want to say thank you to all our corporate sponsors and our volunteer program sponsors who contribute annually to our operating budget and our volunteer program budget. And there she is, Karen Ragland. What can we say about her? She's the outgoing team lead. We're going to miss her to death. She's just incredible, and we'll never be able to thank her enough. But hopefully we won't have to say goodbye to her too soon, and we'll throw a big party in her honor. Leadership development, she's been working with Janet Dillon. Janet's on the organization team, and she's been really coming up with some great ideas for team building workshop, this particular team building workshop, but leadership development. This one is coming up on October 2nd, and there are some flyers, I think, in front of you guys, and also in the back if anybody's interested. But it's really going to be a great workshop. There's more information on our website. If you go to SalineMainStreet.org, you can find out more about this particular event. If you're interested to, let me know, and I will send you information as well. I know that Janet will hook you up as well. Business development team strengthening existing downtown businesses. They really helped with the parking study as they had seats on the steering committee and engaging the businesses. And this was their word cloud, working with the city a lot, focused on business planning. The parking study was very important to them. Downtown development, the market, engaging the businesses. And all that good stuff. New businesses and owners, summer 2018, we saw Earth Elements come in, a little retail shop. Benito's Pizza has new ownership, two great gals, Doreen and Debbie, who are incredible. And Studio Collective, which is Heidi McClellan and her fellow photographers, Dana May and Kat Foley. And they're right there in Merchant Square. Come see what they're doing. Parking Study Steering Committee seats, as we said, Wally McNeil was downtown business owner and also business development team. And David Rhodes, business development team and property owner. Jill Durnan, she's Hartman Insurance and president of the board. And then I got to have a seat as well. Business engagement survey, we have been engaging the businesses just to find out how we could get them more involved if they're not involved, what they need from us, if they know about all the resources we can offer them. So that is going on. It has been going on for the last month. And then, of course, happy 50 years to Marty. I want to thank Tran Longmore and the Saline Post for not only this beautiful shot of Marty, but the wonderful article that he wrote as well. And there's more to come with Marty on his 50th year in downtown Saline. Work plans that are wrapping up, engaging the businesses, being a liaison support for Rich and Associates, the parking consultants, business and property owners meetings, farmers market support, and data and metrics collection. My notes, particular stakeholder meetings and collaborations that I've been able to participate on. CTAP, Coalition for Quality Communities, Saline Leadership Institute, Small Business Development Center, CR2T with Mickey Joe and everybody, and residential vacancy support. Destination in Ann Arbor and Saline Area Chamber of Commerce. I love working with them, showing people that Saline is a great place to come for a few hours or a couple days, but just partnering with these people to promote our businesses, working with John Olson a lot, not only at the Chamber, but with CTAP and CQC and CR2T. We are so sad to be saying goodbye to John Olson, and so I can imagine we're going to be working hard together right up until he leaves after the parade. The Visit Saline video series that I'm working on with CTAP, that's I'm project and field liaison. Two small shorts that are overarching themes about why it's a great idea to come visit Saline. Capturing the essence of Saline and how cool and beautiful and friendly it is. We've got Russell Video shooting these videos, and they did Celtic Festival shots, they did Summerfest, they're coming to Oktoberfest. We're going to be doing stuff on our historic districts and our flowers and all all kinds of cool things. So the 4 mini docks are Saturdays in downtown Saline, the beauty within Saline, Saline's dream businesses, and Saline loves a good time. So they're like in the spirit of pure Michigan, so I think people are going to love them. Small Business Development Center, liaison for 4 downtown businesses. The Small Business Development Center really did a lot of great work with 4 of our people downtown for business planning, budget and sales projections over 3 years, telling their story for the tech companies, like who they are and what they're doing with their startups. Buying or selling a business, how if somebody is getting ready to retire or thinking of retire, to get the most out of their business and for us to not end up with an empty storefront. Retail in the age of Amazon, just how difficult it is to have retail in the age of online shopping. And seed loan support, we had 2 businesses that were able to capitalize their business, and one of them growing and expanding, so it's really exciting. 103 West Michigan Avenue, those are the apartments above Smokehouse 52, was a liaison. I reached out to the JP commercial realtor and got him together with our downtown home goods businesses, and we are doing some apartment staging. So this really cute little empty apartment is going to be looking really cool, so I'll have pictures for that in the newsletter soon. Connecting Saline Main Street. These are all the things that I try to do, people that I try to meet with, and I won't go through all of them, but they're all just, everybody is really engaged here. It's really important for me to know people and to connect everybody to downtown. For me, it's my job to connect people and make downtown a place for everybody. So if you're not up on this list, you will be soon. Finally, Mayor Marl supporting his Merchant Park vision. I'm super excited about that, and everybody on Saline Main Street is as well. We're proud to participate on the work group. Rebecca Schneider, who's the team lead for design team, is the chair of his work group. She's got a meeting already organized for tomorrow. And we're partnering also with Praxis Properties and the Kinleys, who are the actual owners of the property that are leasing it out very cheaply for this park. So Praxis Properties just did some painting on that building on the left that's facing this Merchant Square Park. And it really does activate the space. We're delighted with how vibrant and pretty those colors are. But if you look closer, you can really see where blight has started in. We've got overgrowth. The furniture is really broken, and the view into the dumpster area is sometimes really bad and stinky too. So I'm excited about that park, bringing around some things to do, whether it's jazz combos or Shakespeare in the park or whatever, but it's going to be a whole new little space and an introduction to beefing up the arts in downtown Saline. Our transformation strategy in 2019, we are really building on our family focus, our family-friendly focus. Youth engagement, we want more young people to be involved in working with some of the high school students as interns. Making a deeper dive into the arts and really supporting people and artists and musicians that are involved and want to take part in downtown Saline. Farmers market support as mentors, we were able to get them involved. I brought them to the CQC meeting, and Jody Hilberer, the market manager, co-manager, is now enrolled at Saline Leadership Institute and connecting with people to really learn how to mobilize the community around the market. And they're also working with the Small Business Development Center, doing some business planning as well. So that's, we already see a lot of strengthening happening. Business engagement. As I told you before, with surveys and just going in the front door and connecting. Alignment among the teams so that we're not all working in a silo, as those word clouds suggest, on our own thing, but maybe overlapping a little bit more. And then a whole new look, which has to do with our new branding. And the organization team is working on how we're going to roll that out, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I just want to take a moment to thank you guys, City of Saline Council members, for all your support. The City of Saline, the department officials who do so much for us to help us do our work. We wouldn't be able to do it without you, so thank you.
Thank you, Holly. That was very thorough. Are there questions for our Main Street director? Mr. Gearbaum.
Just an observation. I was kind of disappointed that the smallest word on your one word cloud was volunteer. when your organization wouldn't exist without the volunteers that you have as part of it.
Oh, no, it was it was in there twice, and it was huge.
Oh, I only saw the really small one that said little volunteers.
Yeah, no, it's huge on the organization team. And those aren't the only words that are out, but those are were the main words that I pulled out for, out of the minutes on the meetings. But no, volunteers was huge. I'll send it your way so you can see.
Any other questions? Holly, thanks so much. Appreciate your time this evening. Chris, you can raise the screen, I think. Okay, we come now to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments on agenda items? No, then we'll proceed to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Tar. Is that seconded by Mr. Seo?
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 18-175. This is lease agreement with Washtenaw Emergency Communications Consortium. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the September 11, 2018 memo from Police Chief Hart and to approve or not to approve a lease agreement with Washtenaw Emergency Communications Consortium and to authorize or not authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the contract.
Move to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize.
It's been moved by Mr. Gearbaugh to acknowledge receipt, to approve, and to authorize. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, boy, that was 3 at once. I'll go with Dylan on that one. I'll get McClellan and Seo on one of the upcoming motions. Chief Hart, do you care to make a comment regarding your memo of September 11th? And I believe you have the manager of the consortium with you this evening.
Yes, Mr. Craig Swenson.
And Craig, we welcome you here. Thank you for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
I'll just be very brief. This is another win for the city of Saline here. This is an opportunity for us to, put $6,000 in the bank for renting out a beautiful office space to Mr. Swenson and his partner within the 800 megahertz consortium. So it's the best looking office I have right now at the police department. So it's already been painted and new carpet, and the furniture should be here within a week or two.
Indeed, I was in the back last week, and that new paint certainly smells nice. So, welcome aboard. We look forward to working with you. And as the chief said, this is a win for the city of Saline, and I think you'll enjoy working with the men and women of the police department specifically. We have some really dedicated professionals who serve our citizens in extraordinary ways on a daily basis. So, again, welcome aboard. Are there questions for the chief? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Could you just give a little summary of why it benefits us having this located here besides the financial incentive?
Sure. There's a lot of opportunities throughout the radio system to test and evaluate new equipment. So we will, prior it was over at Pittsfield Township where Mr. Swenson's office was. So we'll have an opportunity to not only test and evaluate new equipment that may come out. We recently purchased some wireless lapel mics for staff. So if they were ever in an altercation with someone, we worry about cords being wrapped around people. So that is an idea that kind of came out of the consortium from Mr. Swenson's group, and also having him on board with his extensive knowledge of PSAPs, of a public safety answering point, dispatch center, all of the electronics and the components within the dispatch center. Mr. Swenson can be a great resource since we don't have, let's say, per se a communications manager. He's willing to step up and help us out. He's always answered the phone in the middle of the night for us. So to have him here is just a great asset.
And thanks for looking forward like this. I think this is a good opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Chief Hart? Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate your time. Any subsequent discussion on the motion? Then it's been properly moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Dillon, to acknowledge receipt, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 18-176. This is contract amendment number 3 for D.N. Higgins for repaving, drainage, and ADA improvements on South Ann Arbor Street. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the September 5th, 2018 memo from DPW Director Fordyce and to approve or not to approve contract amendment number 3 to D.N. Higgins contract in the amount of $191,402.10 for repaving, partial reconstruction, drainage improvements, and ADA crosswalk installation on South Ann Arbor and pavement markings on South Harris Street.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Seal to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Mr. Fordyce, this is very exciting that this finally comes to fruition. Do you want to comment on your memo of September the 5th?
Yes. So at a May work session with council, we discussed potential street projects that could be added to this year's list of construction projects. 2 were chosen at that meeting, a small stretch of North Ann Arbor Street from Woodland to the city limits, and then South Ann Arbor Street from Henry to Pleasant Ridge. The North Ann Arbor Street project was completed for us by the Washtenaw County Road Commission, and that one came in significantly under the amount of money that we had allocated at that meeting. The South Ann Arbor project required design, and as we were going through the design process, we found some things that we had to add to it, and that one of the items, the drainage improvements, required a little bit more work than initially anticipated. There's the existing storm sewer in the area is very deep, and there's sanitary main and water main in the way of the drainage improvements, so we had to get fairly creative and create some extra work for ourselves. In addition to that, I opted to extend the new pavement through the intersection, which will give us a better ride through the intersection, and it incorporated a piece of fairly distressed pavement on the other side of the intersection. That kicks in ADA regulations. We have to improve the ramps, bring those up to current ADA standards. Our non-motorized plan calls for an improved crosswalk across South Ann Arbor into People's Park, so we added that as well. And the areas of pavement requiring full depth reconstruction versus just milling and paving, we expanded that area too as we further studied the condition of the pavement. So the cost estimate provided, or the cost quotation provided by D.N. Higgins was $190,000. Of the funds that were allocated at that work session, there's $155,900 remaining. The Treasury Department has done a pre-audit on our remaining fund balance, excess fund balance, if you will, for the end of 2018, and found that there's sufficient funds in there that we could fund this through fund balance, or our major street funds at the moment are a little bit high because some of the, not high, but there's some money available there because projects completed to date have come in a little bit under. So the overage for this could be funded either way or a combination of those, depending on how council wants to proceed with that. In addition to this large project, we tossed in 2 small projects and found reasonable pricing for the pavement markings that are needed on South Harris Street. The Vanessa Court pavement markings, that price didn't seem so advantageous, so we'll find another way to get that one done. But at this point, we're recommending awarding another contract amendment to D.N. Higgins for the South Ann Arbor Street project and the South Harris pavement markings.
Thank you, Mr. Fordyce. Quickly, and this is a question either for you or for the city manager. Is it staff's recommendation then to use existing dollars in the unrestricted fund balance to cover the approximately, what is it, a $40,000 gap from what you initially projected to what the actual cost is?
$37,900.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Questions for Mr. Fordyce? Ms. McClellan?
So the Vanessa Court, you're not including that at this time?
Not at this time, yeah, and that's simply just a pavement marking project to refresh the stop bar and crosswalk there.
Okay.
So
And do we, I guess this doesn't really matter to this particular motion, but is there a reason why it was so much more?
You know, certain thing, well, one, the material, the pavement marking material that we specified in this is a higher quality, longer lasting material, and that can drive up the price. And when you're using that type of material in small quantities, it gets expensive.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Ms. Dillon?
Just to piggyback on that, is there any safety concerns with not doing those markings at this time?
Not really. I mean, there are pavement markings there. They're just a little bit worn, and there's a stop sign there, so it's compliant at the moment, but it does need to be refreshed. And under the terms of the agreement, when that was brought in, when it was brought in as a public street, the homeowners association there had made a payment to the city to complete those pavement markings, because that was one of the, when that was reviewed to be brought in as a public street, there were a couple of repairs that were needed, some to street trees. I think there was a sign that was damaged, and the pavement markings. And I think the homeowners association at the same time found, again, very difficult to get a reasonable price for a small quantity of pavement markings. So they gave us a check, and we've been trying to get it included in a project. And so failing it in this one, working on getting it into citywide intersection pavement refreshment through the County Road Commissioner's contract.
And then can you give us a little bit of detail about the crosswalk and bike lanes for South Ann Arbor?
Sure. And this part of this project will be coming back to you again for a separate approval at the October 16th meeting, 15th, October 15th meeting, the pavement marking plan. Because the pavement marking plan, as proposed currently, removes 2.5 parking spaces on South Ann Arbor Street. So we need to go through the noticing process and get everybody a chance to comment on that. So we'll be bringing that back at the 17th meeting. The non-motorized plan was, you know, kind of a broad, it had a lot of specifics in it, but it was not a design document. So within the non-motorized plan, it envisioned 2 bike lanes on South Ann Arbor Street. When we got down to design, there's not enough room for 2 bike lanes. So there'll be a marked parking lane, travel lane, and then a marked bike lane on the west side of the street. And the idea there is that largely, during most times a day, that parking lane can be used as a bike lane and then a shared lane. So it's not 2 bike lanes, but it's fairly close. And then the plan also called for an improved crosswalk from across South Ann Arbor from Pleasant Ridge into Peoples Park. So we've added that. It has ADA ramps and signage and pavement markings.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Additional questions? Mr. Gearbaugh?
When you're talking about pavement markings, and this is kind of, as you mentioned, that the cost of doing those, we need to have more activity. If we included the cost of doing parking spaces, because we've talked about, as part of the parking study, to identify more specific parking spaces along Henry, Harris, all of those. Is
Right.
that something that would be feasible to bring in as part of that to make the Vanessa cost and some of the other ones?
Well,
Or is it a different material?
if I can get the road commission contractor, that we're part of their contract, so we have quantities in that contract. It's just been difficult to actually get them on site. So that is a competitively bid, good price, and it's for this kind of work where we're doing one intersection here, one intersection there, and a little bit over here. So that, I think, is the right avenue to do that. When we implement those recommendations from the parking study in terms of pavement markings and from the Henry Street study for pavement markings and traffic calming, that's probably large enough to be its own project.
Okay.
So,
And this construction project will take place again this fall?
yes.
Okay.
In fact, we're looking at the weekend after, or the week after Oktoberfest, not to interfere with festivities, is that correct?
Correct.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Gerba.
And do we know when they're going to be done with the Moon Road intersection?
That is through at least late October.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
may want to figure out how to detour traffic in town, because already it's significantly coming in on both roads.
Yeah. This will be a significant detour. So,
Additional questions? I'm going to have Mr. Campbell add something regarding another capital improvement that was proposed for Mill Pond Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Fordyce, if you could just elaborate a little bit on the Mill Pond Park sidewalk. You all may recall earlier this year, we took preliminary quotes, if you will, trying to add on that small section to join the sidewalk that Cypress Ridge put in along West Bennett, where it connects into the park. And so there's a gap right there, and that's our plan to do that. So we actually we rebid that out, and this would be with this would potentially be added to the Higgins contract. However, since it's not a budgeted item and it's about mid-40s, 48-ish,
46.9.
46.9 for that project, and it's not budgeted. I wanted to at least have a brief discussion with council just to see. I didn't want to just put it on the agenda for action, for consideration, because it is significant dollars that aren't budgeted for. So, Mr. Fordyce, if you could give a little detail.
Yeah. We did make an attempt to complete this prior to the Celtic Festival. We had the sidewalk designed, and we had a quote for it, but it was fairly high. So at the in June, I informed council that the quote was too high. We were going to make some temporary improvements to get us through Celtic Festival, and then we're going to go back to the drawing board, try to design a less expensive sidewalk, and then bid it out. So we did that. We redesigned the sidewalk, advertised for bids. We got 3 bids. D.N. Higgins was the low bidder on the project, $46,888, and significantly lower than the other 2 bids. And so, if we desire to complete this project, as Mr. Campbell mentioned, it is unbudgeted, but this is a good price for what needs to be done there. So.
Approximately how many feet is that sidewalk?
Well, so it's wide. It's an 8-foot wide sidewalk, so that's part of the reason it's expensive. There's also significant grade issues that we have to deal with. So, we're also, as long as we're there, those kind of things always get you. There's been an ongoing drainage problem along the edge of that road where things wash out or it gets clogged up. So yeah, so we've got some curb going in that'll improve drainage in one area and protect the edge, and then we've got an improved catch basin at the end of the street. So off the top of my head, I'd say 400 feet.
Just seems, 40,000 seems like a lot to me, but you're the expert, you're the professional, so.
It's, as a sidewalk goes, yeah, it's expensive, but it is wide. That's actually why I retitled it as a pathway, because it is very wide, and part of the redesign, we incorporated AASHTO pathway standards and mixed in ADA, so it's.
So essentially, by going with D.N. Higgins now, you're leveraging the economies of scale and getting a more reduced price than you would if
Yes.
it was a standalone project.
Yeah, there'll be construction efficiencies, mobilization, reductions.
Can staff remind me, I know we don't have official numbers, but Mr. Fordyce, you referenced this earlier in your remarks. The pre-audited numbers are looking like the unassigned fund balance may be larger than staff had anticipated. So the potential exists that while this is unbudgeted, we could take funds out of our unrestricted fund balance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I don't necessarily want to spend 40,000, but they're already doing work in the city. You're saying it's a good price and it needs to get done. How does the rest of council feel? Let me start with Mr. Gearball, then I'll work my way down to the other side of the dais.
Can you clarify, when you mentioned the drainage or the catch basin, is that the sewer line that we had to repair? I thought there was a sewer or something else involved in this, or is it just the drainage?
I'm just addressing stormwater drainage issues there. There was I'm trying to recall, the water main that was damaged during construction of Cypress Ridge, but that was repaired. And then there was a sanitary sewer main in Bennett Street that we had to repair, and we invoiced the contractor for that.
But there wasn't anything down where we're putting the sidewalk into Mill Pond? I thought.
No, these drainage issues are not, they have nothing to do with
So
Cypress
it's all
Ridge.
stormwater, it's not anything to do with the realignment?
It's all stormwater, and they've been there, they predate Cypress Ridge.
No, I thought in the other higher bid, there was other sewer work that had to be done.
No, it was just, that one had more earthwork, so we kind of realigned and revised the grading plan to reduce the amount of earthwork necessary.
Okay. I'm fine with this. I think it's been something we've been trying to get finished. I know sounds expensive, but it's the cost of getting all that done, and we have so many activities going down there. One lawsuit, and that'd be $40,000, so I'd rather have it fixed.
Ms. McClellan?
Yeah, I think it probably needs to be fixed. Just a clarification, though, this 46.9 is not part of the current motion. It's just something that will come to us later. We
This
just
is
wanna
a
have
discussion
about it.
for a
Okay.
future action item, yes.
And then, so in with that, is there any economy of scale to try and do the Huntington Woods sidewalk at the same time? Is there?
This contractor has looked at that project, and in an attempt to move that forward at the time when that was hitting some skids. And they see that as a very expensive project. So I believe there's a solution kind of on record going forward for that in terms of financing it. But I don't think it would be feasible to include it with this. I think there'd be kind of a capacity issue at that point.
Curious if we
Yeah.
could get them both done with, it would help the price a little bit, so.
Ms. Tahar?
Yes, I would support that too. It's something we've talked about needing to do for a long time.
Yeah.
And having someone who will do it at a price that's less costly than other bids we've had seems like we should take the opportunity now.
Ms. Dillon?
Is there an opportunity to use our county millage, non-motorized path monies?
That we have to submit application for and compete. It's basically a grant back to us to get that money. So it has to go through the Washtenaw County Parks Commission.
Those aren't just dollars we get back every year?
No.
Okay. And can you just clarify the funding source? That might be for Mr. Campbell, that we're proposing now?
Yeah, it would come out of the general fund balance. That's why I wanted to, because it is a significant dollar, that's why I wanted to bring it for discussion as opposed to just, and it's not budgeted.
Okay, so are we going to be making adjustments to the budget for other projects? Is this going to impact, is it going to have a ripple effect? Or are you using overages?
This would, correct, this would be out of the fund balance, not, at this point, we have not looked at reducing any current expenditures that were currently approved in the fiscal year 19 budget.
Okay.
Mr. Seal?
I concur that it's a wise thing to do at this time, given the economies of scale.
Looks like you have direction there. You can come back with a corresponding motion.
Sorry, I just
Yes.
have one last question. Will this be replacing, is it just filling the gap, or is it replacing the existing Mill Pond Park sidewalk also?
So the existing sidewalk that was installed by Cypress Ridge, there's like one or two flags of that will have to be cut back in order to get the grades right. And then at the base of the hill, there's existing patched in asphalt and kind of deteriorated lumpy asphalt. So a lot of that asphalt on the east end of the parking lot will get replaced in this
Okay.
project.
So it'll be consistent, it'll be 8 foot all the way into the park?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions on the motion on the floor to acknowledge receipt and to approve? Any additional discussion? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Tahar to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your work on this, Mr. Fortas. This will be an important project that will improve the quality of life, especially for those folks in the South Ann Arbor corridor. We move on now to new business item 18-177. This is DTE Electric Line Relocation Payment Number 2, a follow-up from the last meeting. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the September 13th, 2018 memo from City Manager Campbell and to approve or not to approve the second payment to DTE in the amount of $103,734 for relocation of electric lines for Lot 18 of Sauk Trail Business Park.
To acknowledge and approve.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Har. Again, Mr. Campbell, you spoke about this issue with some depth at our last meeting. Do you want to make a brief comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is the second of the two payments. You may recall at the last city council meeting, it was the first invoice of two, and that was, again, 50%, so the $103,734 for the design of the relocation of the electric lines, Lot 18, part of that purchase agreement for the hotel and hardware store project. And so this is the other 50%, the second of two invoices to DTE for the actual physical relocation. Once they have payment in full, they have targeted the first week of October to do the actual line relocation.
Questions for the city manager? Ms. Dillon?
Is there any service interruptions or issues for any of the businesses in that area?
Not that I'm aware of.
Additional questions, Ms. Tahar?
Yes, I noticed in the memo, it's stated that DT is expecting to do the line relocation the first week of October 2018, and I just wondered if you've heard anything from DTE subsequent to their making that prediction. I suspect there are a lot of DTE people being deployed to North Carolina, and if they've mentioned they might have to delay that because of the disaster repairs.
Sure. To date, we have not received any notification that they would push it back.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Any discussion? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Tahar to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it, and the motion carries. We move on now to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up is Commission, Committee, and Task Force reports from council members. Ms. Tahar.
Yes, I have two. Holly mentioned this in her report this evening that the new Art Around Saline pieces have been installed. So we now, there's, let me see, 5 new pieces, or 6, that have been installed as of late last week. And so we now have a total of 14. There are maps. They look like this. I expect there are some up at the desk at City Hall that shows the locations of all 11. And they look really great. So the Arts and Culture Committee is very pleased about that. And then secondly, from the Environmental Commission, I remind you of the county hazardous waste collection event on the Saturday of Oktoberfest, the 29th. It will be out at, I'm blanking on the name, Thomson Reuter facility at Textile and State Street. So this is a county-wide event. Look for announcements about this. There will be stations to drop off your various items, and the order of the stations will be published so that you can load your car or trailer accordingly.
Very good. Additional committee, commissioner, task force reports. Ms. McClellan.
Yeah, just wanted to mention that tomorrow is our first Youth Council Commission meeting of the year, and we're excited to welcome some new faces and some old returning faces to the group. And also just put out an announcement that if anyone is interested in serving as a liaison to the group, you're welcome to come. The meetings are at 5:30 on Tuesdays at the, I don't know what week we're at, third Tuesday, thank you, third Tuesday of the month, and it's a great experience. Get some credit for your government class, more than likely, and then also help out with the commission. So
Very good.
anyone is welcome, I believe, anywhere from 8th grade up until senior year of high school, so come join us.
Very good. Any other commission, committee, or task force reports? I'll just note, Mr. Gearbaugh can elaborate, but at last Wednesday's Planning Commission meeting, Arbor Lane's final site plan was approved, and it does include a sidewalk. The developer agreed to install a sidewalk, so as you recall, the dedication of that private street, or the designation, excuse me, of that private street will be an action item at our next council meeting on October 1st. Reports or other announcements? Mr. Seal.
Last Friday night, we had the annual Saline Lindenberg dinner up at the American Legion Hall. It was, we had considerably more persons in attendance than we did last year. And I'd like to thank the community for, again, helping us with that event. It's one of the few fundraisers that we have throughout the year, and it helps us continue to provide for not only the Saline Lindenberg group to bring the Germans here to Saline, but we also then presented a check to the German-American Partnership Program, the high school students who have an exchange with the German high school in Lindenberg every year. One year our students go there, the next year the German students come here. And this year the German students are scheduled to come here. So the high school German teacher was very appreciative of the check that we presented to him to allow for their activities to go forward during their visit.
Very good. Mr. Hard, do you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you. This is from the Washtenaw Urban County Executive Committee, on which I sit as representing the city. At the September 5th meeting, we had a public hearing for an annual report that has to be filed by this group. The funds that this group manages come from the federal government. So there's an annual consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. And I have copies of the agenda summary, which give bullet points of all of the projects that were supported in the past year by this funding, which I thought, since you don't necessarily hear a lot about this group, I have copies for members of council, and if anyone else would like to see it. So it's a nice list of the way these funds are used in the county.
Very good. Additional reports or announcements, Ms. Dillon?
I just wanted to follow up. I know Holly Andrews mentioned in her Saline Main Street presentation about the upcoming team building workshop sponsored by Main Street. Council colleagues are involved. The public is welcome. It is on Tuesday, October 2nd from 1:30 to 6:30 at the Old Saline Hospital. There is a nominal charge. If you have questions, you can contact Saline Main Street directly.
Very good. And also a reminder to the community that our first forum regarding our November street millage will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Saline Area Senior Center. If your schedules permit, I look forward to seeing you there. I know the Senior Center has done their part to help promote it, and I know we're less than 24 hours out, but anything you can do to spread the word would be greatly appreciated. If there are no, oh, you have something? Yes, please.
I just wanted to let everyone know that the city of Saline will have a table at the Oktoberfest Saturday, October 29th. So if there's information that you would like distributed on that Friday between 3 and 10, we'll be manning a table there.
Very good. If there are no other announcements, we have our bi-monthly wastewater treatment plant update from our superintendent. Steve, we appreciate you being here, and if you could also touch on the analysis that was just done on our wastewater and drinking water regarding the PFAS. We got some good news about the drinking water and some issues that need to be resolved regarding the wastewater. So if you want to touch on that as a component of your report, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I was out of state until late last night, so I just returned today, so I'm a little foggy yet. But before the PFAS issue, I did meet with E&L Construction as a new site supervisor at the wastewater treatment plant. They're the general contractor for the odor control project. So they're getting ready to start staging materials, and they poured pads at the south side pump station and the Sauk Trail pump station. I got some color swatches for the carbon absorber at the south side pump station I'll give to Mr. Campbell, so you can, I don't know who will decide which color unit to put in there, but there's white, gray, or beige are the three color options for that site. As you mentioned, Friday we got word from the NDEQ on our drinking water analysis for PFAS, And those are the substances that are in like Stainmaster carpet, Gore-Tex, waterproof materials. A lot of slippery substances have these, that's what makes them slippery and desirable. So we got our drinking water sample results and they were non-detect, which is great. We should expect that to be non-detect because they are man-made substances and we didn't have any factories or any of that activities near our wells that are on that side of town. So that was very good. No further action is required. It is recommended to be testing PFAS once a year in the future of our drinking water. Okay. I think Mr. Campbell touched on it last week, or maybe that our wastewater sampling that was done by the state had positive results. Positive meaning not good. It's not unusual. I don't believe the state hasn't issued a full report on their data yet. I did talk to the state person, and we were about in the middle range of those results. A few places had below 10 parts per trillion. And again, a part per trillion is 1 drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So we're talking about a very small amount that's able to be detected. I wasn't expecting to speak on this. I think our result was 33 parts per trillion on the, I forget if it's PFOA or PFOS. And the health warning advisory for drinking it is 17 parts per trillion. Okay, so like I say, it's not unusual to see that. I talked to the state. They said that even in just domestic water, they wouldn't be surprised to see 5 parts per trillion or so. So what we're going to do is try to track down the source of what's coming into the wastewater treatment plant. We have 3 main trunk lines coming in. We have the west, central, and then the east. And I would suspect that the east belt would be the one that would most likely have the compounds in it. That's where almost all the industrial flow from the industrial parks comes through that. The other 2 are mainly light commercial and residential. But we'll test them all. We'll test our influent to the wastewater plant and our effluent. These are very persistent substances, so that could be something that was in pipes and plants for years ago, but it's just leaching out in really small amounts. Like I say, again, 1 drop per 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools is a part per trillion. So just a little bit in the equipment could be leaching out for years and years and years. But we'll sample that. When we get the results, I'll share those with council, and we'll work with the state to decide on a plan to kind of track down if we can find a single source or a couple of sources of where these pollutants are coming from. Okay.
Any information regarding the NOVA filters or odor complaints to the plant?
I wasn't here last week. We did have a noise complaint at the plant, and we think it's due to our burner of the waste gas for the digester. So Mr. Fetchick has contacted a distributor of that equipment to see if we can find a way to tampen that down a little bit. I haven't heard of any odor complaints. Of course, I was out of town, but I didn't get an email while I was gone. But I'm looking forward to a little cooler weather, and that should help as well. And then the NOVA filters, we did get the one NOVA filter up and running. The trunnion wheels came apart on the one unit. We got the new, better wheels in there, and it has been running for approximately 2 weeks now. And we're waiting for NOVA to come fix the other filter that has an electrical problem.
Okay, good. Questions for our wastewater treatment superintendent? Ms. Dillon.
It may be what you're just referring to, your last comment. The wire, is that what you're referring to? Have we determined who's at fault, and is there a solution to fix that?
Well, NOVA felt that the problem was due to corrosion in the wires, and we had DF Best, the electrician that installed the wire. Instead of messing around with it, they just put a hole, ran new wiring there, and the problem persisted. So we can rule out that it was a problem with the wiring. It's a different problem.
A problem that's a NOVA problem?
It should be a NOVA problem, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Campbell, have we reached out to them? Because I know that they had specifically said in that letter that that was not part of the warranty because they didn't feel as though that was their responsibility?
Right, you may recall, we had similar conversation at the last meeting, and so once it's determined, because at this point, we don't have a solution, so we don't know what the exact problem is. So once that's determined, then we can better be able to determine whose responsibility it is. At this point, I would agree with Steve in that we believe it would be, but it would be Nova Filter's responsibility, but that remains to be seen until we determine what exactly is the cause.
And originally, they thought there was a problem with the gear drive. We took that down to the manufacturer. They tested it. It was fine. And then Nova felt that it was corrosion in the wiring. We have new wiring in there, and that didn't solve the problem. So the ball's back in their court to determine what the problem is. The electrician was on the phone with Nova's repairman during that process, trying a number of fixes, but nothing was working, so we're gonna have to wait for Nova to come out and try to repair it themselves.
So that one filter does not work, it's non-operational?
Correct. We have one online and one is inoperable.
Okay, with no time frame as to when it's gonna come back online?
I will try to give a call tomorrow to see if when they're scheduled to come up.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Not a question, but there was an odor issue on Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember.
Okay.
So when I walked out, yep, and it was probably because it got warmer that day.
I believe it, and like every wastewater superintendent, we're poor judges of that, so I
No,
believe people.
I was going to send an email and I didn't, but we know it, and it wasn't, again, just to acknowledge it so that in case somebody says something.
And I'm one of the few people that are hoping the nice weather ends and people get indoors more often.
Additional questions, comments? Steve, thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate your time
thank
this
you.
evening. Let's transition to an update on the organizational review. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess the good news is we had two quality proposals. We sent out, I believe, 8 or 9 firms the RFP for the organizational review, and we received two pretty quality proposals back, one from the Novak Group and one from GovHR. Our staff review team consists of Treasurer Bennett, Chief Hart, DPIP Director Fordyce, Admin Assistant Getchman, and myself. And so we've reviewed the proposals. We brought both firms in for face-to-face interviews. And so I wanted to bring this before council because this apparently is the meeting where we have things that are over budget or not on the budget. So, my intent, depending on if it's favorable or not, would be to bring it back to the October 1st meeting for council to consider. But staff, meaning myself, did some due diligence beforehand, and I was hoping somewhere around 20 or 30,000 would be sufficient. So we have 20,000 budgeted. Unfortunately, the low bid came in 48,675. High bid came in at 62,000. Both not to exceed numbers. And then as far as the quality, I mean, our staff review team went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth again as we reviewed it, because trying to figure out, well, is the difference, for just almost 14,000, just under $14,000 difference between the two, is that enough to make a recommendation? For the higher one, for instance. If I could, I just would like to read some comments that we had, and then happy for further discussion. But so after reviewing proposals and meeting with representatives from the Novak Group and GovHR, the group has reached the following conclusion based on information listed below in the strengths and weaknesses section. Although there is a significantly higher cost to the Novak Group, it was generally felt that the quality of the sample studies reflected that this cost difference was justified. Novak Group provided a product that was easily understood, thorough, and offered step-by-step methods for implementation. We were not as convinced the GovHR would be able to be as thorough and provide everything we asked about at the stated cost. The products provided by GovHR were less professional, and the quality of the final reports was markedly different when compared directly to the Novak group. This is an important study and will continue to be so into the future, which means we are looking for a thorough and easily understood document to withstand the test of time, and we felt the Novak group was provided this without a doubt. So some of the strengths and weaknesses, so for the Novak group, so the Novak group's about 17 weeks, and then the GovHR is about 12 weeks. Strengths for the Novak group: professional, polished in presentation, written materials, analytical-minded. Sample work is thorough, easily understood, enthusiastic references. Member of the team is public. They have a public works utility specialist as part of their team. Succession planning focus included in reports. Sample reports easy to understand, step by step. To implement, more than one person will come to do interviews, interactions to ensure that all sides of the conversation are heard. Weaknesses: cost. Less experience in Michigan, no base in Michigan, but they do them all over the country, as does GovHR. They do not do classification compensation studies. You may recall that this was also discussed as potentially for follow-up after this organizational review, that potentially to have our classification compensation study redone, since it's getting old, a number of years since we've had one. And then maybe too analytical, less practical, hands-on focused. So GovHR strengths: personable, positive presentation, direct experience managing in Michigan. They are able to perform a classification compensation study at additional cost, of course. Although not directly on project team, the organization has subject matter experts that can be consulted in certain areas, such as public works. Weaknesses: less polished written materials, sample reports harder to follow, less polished. Had to ask more questions to interview to draw what they could do out, as opposed to in the presentation that they gave us. So we just wanted to bring that before you and see what thoughts are before we would consider bringing that to you all for your consideration.
What's the price again for Novak Group?
$62,000, not to exceed.
And there's 20,000 currently budgeted.
That's correct.
Okay. One of the things that might be helpful, unless you have objections, Mr. Campbell, is the proposal that was received from the Novak Group. Could we get that distributed to council sometime this week for everyone to take a look at?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there questions for the city manager, Mr. Gearbaugh?
Actually, I'd like to see both of them, just because I want to see what the proposal is.
Sure.
Yep, absolutely.
And then kind of the question is, if you could give a little background again on how we did the bid process. Was this sent out to specific individual companies, or did they respond directly back to us?
So we'd gathered a list. We'd done some, looked at, as again, part of their due diligence as we were trying to come up with a cost, as well as come up with what we were actually looking for. These were a list of firms that we came up with that other communities had utilized for similar projects. And so that's how we came up with 8 or 9 or 10 total that we sent out to.
But it wasn't open bid, so that any company
Yes.
could apply?
Oh, yes, sir.
I just want to make sure how we sent that out. Then the only other thing is, I just want to understand how each one, if it's within the document itself, their process and approach, just so I
Yes.
understand exactly how they do it. Okay, thank you.
All right, so both both proposals will be sent out. Ms. McClellan, any questions?
Yeah, did you get bids from all 8 or 9, or
No,
pricing from all 8 or 9?
We
Just
only
for the
received 2
Okay.
proposals.
I'd just be curious to see if that's sort of the average of what the average is for pricing across the board, or if this one is really high and the other one's sort of average, or if there are some that are lower. I just was curious because I don't have experience with that.
Ms. Tahar, any questions?
I wondered if you had any feedback from any of the companies, the firms that did not submit a bid, about why they chose not to do so.
We did not follow up with them. We can certainly reach out and have that information for the October 1st, but we did not have not done that thus far.
Okay. It might be interesting
Sure.
if there was some sort of trend or something about the way we presented the questions.
I think that's a good thought. So unless there's objections, Mr. Campo, between now and our next council meeting on October 1st, if you could follow up with some, if not all, of the other entities that we sent proposals to determine why they did not respond. I think that would be useful data. Ms. Dillon, any questions?
I do. We had budgeted 20,000. we seem to have been very far off the mark on that. Did we just sort of pull that number out of the air? Was that based on something?
No, I had contacted some firms just to see for a community our size and some larger communities that were 3 times our size. And that's, so that was, the number that I got were, like I said, in the 30s for larger communities, and so, but I guess apparently the time is the time that they will, the resources that they'll allocate for this study, so, but yeah, unfortunately, yes, you are, I can't disagree, I certainly missed the mark for sure.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Seo, any questions?
Have you called any references? I'm sorry if you mentioned that and I didn't catch it.
We did, and that was the other reason Ms. Getchman is here this evening. She followed up, and I know she was extremely pleased with the references that she called for the Novak Group. Were excited and very pleased with the results, and trying to think, enthusiastic references, I guess, as I read off earlier, and it wasn't necessarily that GovHRs weren't happy, but they just, maybe it wasn't as clear, the results. Am I missing anything? Oh, right, right. So, right, so it was much easier, and again, to use the word enthusiastic, the references for the Novak Group, or seemed much happier with the results that they got from the work that the Novak Group had done for them.
Thank you.
Let's proceed like this. You, sometime tomorrow, Mr. Campbell, if you can provide electronic copies of the 2 proposals to City Council, and if you would, put hard copies in each one of our mailboxes as well. And then to Mayor Pro Tem Tahar's point, between now and our next meeting on the 1st, if you could reach out to the other entities, organizations that we sent proposals to determine why they did not respond, that would be useful data. And then we can regroup as a council and determine how best to move forward. I will say this for the record. If the trend continues and subsequent to the audit being completed, which I believe is this Friday, if our unrestricted fund balance grows, we certainly could use some of those dollars to subsidize the cost. We could also use one-time revenue from the likely sale of Lot 20A along Michigan Ave. My point being, I do think this is an important initiative, one, because it could yield to cost savings, but more importantly, it could help us streamline and improve efficiencies within the organization to better meet the needs of our constituents. So again, I'll note those comments for the record, and we'll revisit this issue in 2 weeks' time. Last but not least, Mr. Fordyce, we are revisiting with you our waste management agreement, and we do have a document in front of us dated May the 2nd from Mr. Brian Conway, who's with us this evening. Brian, thank you for being here. You might want to join Mr. Fordyce up at the podium in the event that there are any questions for you. Mr. Fordyce, do you want to go over what the recommendations and options are, and then we'll see if we can develop consensus to have an action item appear on our next council agenda, which would be on the 1st.
Right. So you have a couple of different documents in front of you. One, the letter that we reviewed at the work session on this topic, where there was broadly support for modifying the contract and coming up with some sort of compensation for the additional costs in the recycling world right now. Additionally, in front of you, you have a contract amendment that this amendment utilizes the same mechanism of an adjustment to the per household rate that was discussed in the letter and that we talked about at the work session. I also asked Waste Management to take a look at some other ways to deal with the cost difference, basically pass-through cost. You know, they go to the MRF charges them $90, Waste Management charges us $90. They go to the MRF charges $75, Waste Management charges us $75. So they provided some language on those types of options, and I believe Ypsilanti does that.
Ypsilanti is the first option, the second is Milan.
Okay. And maybe Mr. Conaway could talk a little bit about the details in the differences of those two options. But at this point, where we are in time and with the contract end date in June of next year, I feel comfortable going with just the per household rate change as originally proposed. I think that,
Let's call that option 1.
well, be careful, because the other two options are option 1 and 2.
So all right, let's say that, then to make it, for the sake of clarity, let's say that's option 3 then.
Okay,
That makes sense?
Yep.
So your preference is to pursue option 3
yes, and that is the one that you have contract language for in front of you.
and take subsequent action on at our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
That option, and really the dollar value of whichever way we go is going to be pretty much the same. So adding $1.90 adds a little over $5,600 to our monthly bill. And so this would be in force for roughly 9 months. That would be an additional roughly $51,000 of cost.
Since we've been talking a lot about the budget and finance this evening, any idea off the top of your head of how we would absorb that?
I think when we took a quick look at it, the solid waste fund has that much money in it right now, but obviously in the next year, we would have to budget for higher recycling costs.
Correct. But in that interim, we would have enough.
Right.
Enough funds to cover. Okay. Before I open it up for questions and comments, Mr. Conaway, as our guest, do you care to make any comment this evening?
Again, I just would like to thank you all for the considerations that you are giving to this issue. It's major. It's not changing very quickly, and we expect ongoing to continue to see a difference in the recycling and these costs. We're hopeful that over time it will get better. The options that I have put here before you, they would include any value that may occur with the commodities, the base price of the processing charge, plus or minus any of the values. We're not seeing a lot of values at this point because we're still addressing the issues with China. And the other countries that are receiving material, they're asking for better quality as well. So they're not as stringent with the 0.5%, but they are asking for better quality in the commodity. So we're not seeing a lot of difference as of yet.
Very good. So I'll first open it up for questions. If we can do a quick round of questions, and then I want to see if there's consensus. And again, you have option 1, 2, and 3 in front of you, and it's staff's recommendation that we pursue option 3. Let me start. I started to my left before, so let me start to my right. Mr. Har, questions for either Mr. Fordyce or our guest from Waste Management?
So, yes, for Mr. Fordyce. So you said the cost would be essentially the same of the various options. So your reason for preference, for your preference for what we're calling option 3 is simplicity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, there's 3 different ways to skin the same cat. But when we're looking at a possible contract extension, then I think, since that'll be over a longer term, we want to look at a mechanism that can automatically adjust to changes in the market. So I suspect in the contract amendment that it won't be this option. But for now, where things are fairly stable at a high dollar value or high dollar cost, and we're looking at a short term, I think this is the simplest contract modification.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Dillon?
I guess my only question is, single stream is our only option?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. CO?
I have no questions. I believe option 3 sounds fair.
Okay. Mr. Gearbach, questions?
What are other communities doing? Have any decided to abandon recycling?
No, I've had a couple that have asked that question, but no one has taken that step as of yet.
And have any refused to modify their contracts?
I have a couple of, the city of New Baltimore, they've asked me to come back and look at it in terms of the contract extension and have the same issue and discussion with the city of Utica. They want to add carts to theirs and they want to have it all put into one proposal.
So revising the whole thing. That's why I just want to say the one, and it's not the option anybody on this board seems to want to support, is eventually abandoning recycling until they can figure out what is going on. Because it's a significant cost for what we're doing, and not so sure the benefit is still there. So when I look at it in December, I want to understand exactly, or when we look at this next June, I would like to look at both advantages of whether or not we continue it. So, thank you.
Ms. McClellan?
No questions. I think option 3 is probably.
Okay, you good with option 3? Mr. Gearba, you good with option 3 for the time being?
For time being, yes.
Okay, I'm good with option 3 for the time being. Like Mr. Gearba, I'd like to revisit this and look at it holistically in a little less than a year's time. We're going to be looking at a more long-term extension. Appreciate your work on this. Thank you for being here. Can I just grab, I want to make sure I get consensus from my last council member before I get back to you, Brian. Ms. Dillon, are you okay with option 3?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Please.
So the one item I wanted to add with option 3, it does stay in place until the end of the contract. We won't come back and ask for anything in addition.
Okay.
No matter what happens with the market.
Appreciate that. And we will take corresponding action then in our next meeting on October 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Could I, one comment? So the Environmental Commission, the Environmental Commission has been very interested in this issue and problem. And so, Mr. Conaway, if you have, I see you have a list here, the single stream specifications. If you have updated material that the Environmental Commission would be happy to work on trying to just get the word out about new or refresh people's memories about the single stream specifications.
I can share that with Fordyce.
Yep.
Okay.
Make
thank
sure
you.
it gets to the Environmental Commission. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other items to be brought up during the discussion portion of tonight's agenda? Then we'll proceed to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? Please come to the podium and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Deborah Barnes. I am the owner of Annie's Children's Center on Monroe Street. The address is 211 Monroe Street. This summer, we had an issue with the parking lot. We've had an issue with my parking lot. And we did, the city redid the tennis courts and made it a parking lot. My parking lot, the city has deeded rights to drive over my parking lot and also has a 50% responsibility for the repairs of my parking lot. And I thought Gary would be here tonight, and they've gotten 4 bids to repair my parking lot, and I just want to know where we're going with this.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No?
No? Okay, very good. Well, I'll respond, but let me make sure there are no additional comments this evening from anyone else, okay? Does that sound fair? Okay, very good. Are there any other public comments this evening? No? So, City Council is not directly involved in the bidding process. You're correct, Mr. Rubel is not here. I will make sure that the city manager follows up with him tomorrow, and someone will be in touch with you by the end of the week, okay?
Okay.
Very good. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Please.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Staff is actually meeting later this week to review those bids and discuss those in greater detail. So my apologies for any misunderstandings, miscommunications. So
We'll make sure to still get you a call or email to provide you a little bit more substance and let you know about how it will progress in the future. Okay? Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for attending. If there's nothing further, please note our upcoming meetings. We will have a work meeting at 6 p.m. on the 1st to revisit our SAW grant utility study. We have some data that came in that was shared with me, and I think it's pertinent to share that with council because I think there'll be some subsequent policy decisions that will need to be made. And then we have a brief work meeting on the 15th to discuss community event applications. We already excused the absence of Councilwoman Mitchell, so at this time the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at, I'm going to say that's 8:59.
Moved.
Moved by Gearboss, seconded by McClellan. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.